Hello, my name is Jazz, and I've read a lot of fanfiction. A lot. Seriously, books worth of fanfiction, so I think I'm pretty qualified to make a fanfiction romance tier list here. So my S tier is binge reading, then I like it. Why not? Depends on execution or not my thing. Now I've seen 2 other people do these tier lists and I just had to do it because I have some opinions. So let's get started. Starting out with ABO. ABO is a specific subgenre of fanfiction that sees its characters engaging in alpha, beta, omega dynamics, wherein alphas are the higher, sort of more dominant level of society and omegas are the more submissive level of society. Basically, it's kind of almost furry stuff. And I've read a few. I don't love it, but at the same time, it's like, some of them are passable. So I'm gonna say the actual trope is not my thing. I usually enjoy the other elements outside of that rather than that specific element. Next up is an amnesia fic, where one of the participants forgets the relationship they had with the other participant. I hate this. This is one of my least favorite tropes ever, because it feels like the story is developing backwards. I despise it. I hate it so much. It's just so upsetting as well to think about how this person doesn't have any of the memories that the other person does in their relationship, and even if they do fall in love again, they'll never have the memories of things that they had done before. It just upsets me. Which will make my next choice a little bit odd. Angst, I love. Angst is honestly one of my favorite tropes ever. I love angst stories, characters being captured or tortured or being in a battle or just feeling generally awful. It's one of my favorite things. Arranged marriage. I've read a few of these. It's not the worst thing. I don't hate it. But it's not something that I would necessarily independently seek out on my own. So I'm going to put it in the depends on execution category. A lot of them are, very trash man meets a very submissive woman. They hate each other and then eventually she falls in love with him and fixes him, which is not a story that I like. But, there are more interesting ones as well that I find are easier to read. Baby fic, I don't like. Don't get me wrong, I like kids. I just thinking introducing a child into the dynamic of a relationship is often really strange, and it takes the characters out of what they would normally be, it takes them away from their normal characterization, which I'm not a big fan of. I like the story changing, but I don't like characterization changing. And that is a big thing when it comes to baby fics, is the characterization changes. Sharing a bed. This one is relatively harmless to me. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but it's usually, in most cases, done well enough that it's enjoyable. It usually leads to some humor, which I like. So all in all, sharing a bed, relatively harmless. Bang or die, I like it. I find a lot of the scenarios for bang or die are really contrived. It's usually where characters are placed in a situation where they have to have sex or they die. And sometimes the plots are just so crazy out there that it throws me off, so I can't put it in the I love it category. Also, the fact that it can lead to some odd implications where these characters might not actually like each other all that much, and then there's, the possibility of it being a bang or die fic. So it's not my top tier. Body swap, depends on execution. A lot of them are just really weird. I think that if there's a level of understanding in becoming the other person, it might be interesting, but overall it's not my favorite thing. Coffee shop AU, why not? It's relatively harmless, it's relatively wholesome, but it's not groundbreaking. You know, there's a coffee shop AU for just about every fandom, so. College AU, again, why not? You know, it's just placing the characters in a different time or place. I think the most important thing to me is actually characterization. So if the characterization remains strong in between these two, then it's not the worst thing in the world. But it's not like something that I love. You know, it's just something I read because I can. Crackfic, I don't like. I like there to be a plot. I like there to be... a crackfic, in case you don't know, is something that's just sort of nonsensical. The romantic pairing doesn't make sense, or the setting doesn't make sense, or the plot doesn't make sense. It's just kind of like out of nowhere. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. It's just kind of, like, why did you do this in my mind? So it's not my thing. Crossovers, I hate. I prefer characters to stay within the realm of their own universe. So when I see a crossover, I usually skip it. I don't think I've ever read a crossover all the way through. Darkfic, I love, which should not be surprising considering angst is up there. A darkfic is just typically where you would take something and add a lot darker elements, where, you know, say for instance that you're watching like an E for Everyone show or whatever, and they add death or war or illness or something like that. I love that. Major character death, I'm gonna put that in I like it. While I like angst and dark stuff, major character deaths tend to bum me out a little bit, so if I'm not ready to, you know, feel bad about it, then it's not the best thing in the world for me. I like it because it adds that angst and that drama, but I do feel sad about it, and that, you know, it drops my mood a little bit for the rest of the day, so it's not quite, you know, great. Canon divergence, I'm gonna say depends on execution, because there's a lot of ways you can diverge from the canon that are good, and there's a lot of ways you can diverge from canon that are bad. So I'm gonna put that in depends on execution. Enemies to lovers, I'm gonna put in, why not? I know a lot of people really like that. I, again, find it a little strange when people hate each other at first, and then they, you know, become lovers eventually. But, you know, people on opposing sides of a war, or, you know, something like that, is interesting to me. Especially when they find out that they've been misunderstanding each other all along, and it's not like somebody actually has a character flaw that the other person just chooses to ignore. I like it much better when there's a misunderstanding and then they grow and learn about each other together. I think that's really interesting. Established relationship, I'm gonna say why not. I like it, but there's a lot more fun and intrigue to me in characters getting together for the first time. Fairy tale AU, it's not really my thing, but I'm not gonna put it not my thing, because I do like it sometimes. It just depends on the execution. Oftentimes it's a little bit either overdone, like, you know, every single fairy tale AU is the same thing, or it's just not interesting. Fake relationship, I'm gonna say I like it. It's just leads to a lot of interest in what these characters think the other person wants in a fake relationship. And there's also the whole sneaking around aspect to it, and then secretly falling in love, of course, you know, all that stuff is great. Fix-it fix. That's basically when the author doesn't like something in the show, and fixes it with fan fiction. I'm gonna put it in depends on the execution, because some people make fix-it fix for the smallest things, and I'm like, really? Did you have to do that? Fluff. I'm gonna put that in... Oh gosh. I'm gonna put it in I like it, because I like fluff, but oftentimes a lot of fluff to me feels like there's no real... It's called fluff, so there's no real substance to the story, which makes it a little bit... It feels like almost a waste of my time. I like fluff at the end of stories, but I don't like stories that are exclusively fluff. Friends to lovers, that's good. I like it. I especially like it when people are... You know, they already like each other, and then something small happens, and one of them is just, like, completely smitten. I love that. Genfic is a fanfiction that doesn't really have any romance in it, and I love it. I've read a lot of genfics. A lot of them are more action-based, and more focused on friendships, and I love that. I think it's great. Hurt Comfort is my favorite thing in the universe, so that's going in binge reading, because you get angst, but you also get that tiny little bit of fluff at the end. Oh, it's so sweet. It's like you get to feel like, you know, you get the action and the intensity, but you also get a little bit of a good feeling at the end. Historical AU, I don't really care for. I'm gonna put it in not my thing. I don't understand it. I've never really been into historical stuff, so the fact that it's not my thing is kind of like, whatever. High school AU, why not? I don't really care for it all that much, but if it's a high school AU, I'll still read it, as long as it's interesting. Huddle for Warmth, again, why not? It's not like my favorite thing in the world, but it does get the characters closer together, and it has the potential for a little bit of angst, so why not? Humor, I like it. Stories that are funny are excellent. Stories that try to be funny and are not excellent. I cannot read those kind of stories because I get so wrapped up in the cringe, it's not even funny. In Vino Veritas, or Drunken Confession, I'm gonna put it in, why not? It's not my favorite way for somebody to confess, because it often leads to miscommunication, but it's not like the worst way somebody could confess either. First kiss, I'm gonna put that in why not as well. I do like reading about people's first kisses, they're kind of sweet. Magic AU, it depends on the execution. I'm not a huge fan of it, but like, if it's done well, it's really hard to create a magic system or anything like that, so if it's done well, it's not so bad. Miscommunication, I despise. There is nothing worse than repeated miscommunication in a story that could be so easily resolved by two characters sitting down, having a conversation. Oh my god, I hate nothing more. It's insane. Just talk to each other. Just talk to each other. I'm mad even just thinking about it. Missing scenes. That's when you're reading or watching something and there's a sort of skip ahead, but you want to know what happened in the scenes that were missing. Or, you know, you get some more slow development over time. I'm gonna say, why not? Again, I don't really care as long as the rest of the story is developed well, but it is sometimes nice thinking about what other people thought happened in those pieces in between. Mutual pining. I'm gonna say it depends on the execution, because in my experience, a lot of mutual pining is absolutely rot. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, sorry. Is actually bleh. A lot of mutual pining is wrought with miscommunication, because like they love each other, and if they would just talk about it, they could get together, but they don't talk about it, and they just sort of assume that the other doesn't like them. I'm not a big fan, but sometimes a little bit of mutual pining is good. Sex pollen, that's when, I'm sorry, I have to sneeze again. That's when characters are introduced to some sort of alien pollen that increases their sex drive, or it basically makes them horny. I mean, why not? You know, it's not it's not something that'll make or break something for me, I suppose. Pregnancy fic? No, thank you. It just feels a little bit too outside of a world sometimes for that to be a thing. Plus, I read a lot of stories that are same-sex relationships, so that's usually a little bit off-putting. PWP, that means porn without plot, and that's going in my binge reading category. Sometimes you just want to read some smut, and you don't want to listen to all of this plot surrounding it, and you don't want all this song and dance. You just want to get down to the nitty-gritty. So I'm gonna put it in binge reading, because, you know, I want that. Royalty AU, I don't care for it. I just don't see a lot of changes about them being royalty. I guess it could sort of merge with an arranged marriage AU or something like that, but it's not really my thing. Slow burn, I love. I read a lot of slow burn stuff. Some of my favorite fics are like 130,000 words. There is something nice about seeing people very slowly fall in love, so slow burn is on my list. Soulmate AU, I like it. Most of them are good. Most of them are pretty creative. Some of them are garbage. But I have read some very, very good soulmate AUs. Some of the less interesting ones are like the tattoo of the first word someone says on your hands or whatever. It's just not all that interesting. Time loop, I think... Oh, what happened? No. I'm so dumb. I clicked on my recording instead of the actual... window. Time loop is... Why not? It's not, like, always very well done. Sometimes it's a little frustrating, but there is something really nice about seeing somebody learn from their mistakes and try again. It's like Groundhog Day, you know? And that's why I enjoy watching people play video games and stuff, is because you get to see somebody make a mistake and then learn from it. And we all wish we could do that, go back in time and fix things. So I like time loops. Love triangle, I generally don't like them, because it tends to mean one person is always left a little bit heartbroken. I'm gonna say not my thing, because they just kind of make me uncomfortable. Unhappy endings, I like. I prefer happier endings. I prefer that everything resolves well-ish, or, you know, semi-well, but there is something nice about being left feeling very sad, especially when the story calls for it. When it's an unhappy ending out of nowhere, it's like, what the fuck, that's crazy. But an unhappy ending just at the end of a sad story is really almost cathartic, and I love crying, so so it works out well. Finally, unrequited love. I'm gonna put it in not my thing. I'm assuming that means unrequited till the end. And yeah, that's really unhappy, because in real life that happens, you know? So why would I want to read about somebody loving somebody and then it not being... I mean, it is kind of nice to see people that love each other, or somebody that loves someone else, realizing that they're better off with someone else or staying their good friend, but it breaks my heart, so I can't do it. Anyway, that is my fanfiction tier list. It's just a random shit post. I might make more of these. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want. I don't really care. Bye-bye.